Good evening, good evening. Welcome to tonight's Bible class. Welcome to tonight's Bible class 2021. Welcome. Come on in to TCF Virtual Bible Class. To our virtual Bible class here at True Christian Fellowship Baptist Church. And we'll be looking at prayer tonight. We started off last week dealing with prayer, and we're going to continue on this week dealing with prayer. So come on in. We're going to give a few minutes for people to come into our Bible class, and then we're going to get started. So come on in the room. Jesus is my doctor. Come on in the room. All right. So we're going to be looking at prayer. So come on in. All right. Good evening, Cousin Shirley. How you doing today, this evening? God bless you, my cousin. God bless you. We're going to give a few minutes for more people to tune in. God bless you, sister. God bless you. We're still looking at prayer. There's a lot to prayer. And so we're going to make sure that we cover it so we can know how to pray. So we're going to be looking at prayer so we can know how to pray. So we'll give a couple more minutes for people to come in so we can have our Bible class tonight. Last week, like I said, we looked at how to enter into prayer. So it's important how you enter into prayer. You can't just jump up and pray. Some things that Jesus said are required of us. So we can't just jump into it. Hello, my sister-in-law, Roxanne. God bless you. Hello, Evangelist Lisa Jones. God bless you. Roxanne look like she on YouTube today. God bless you, sister. Hello to Reverend E. Jones. God bless you, brother. All right. Hello to my brother Kenny. God bless you, brother. God bless you. All right. God bless you. All right. So it seems like people are coming on in to the Bible class, and so we're getting ready to get started with our Bible class. We'd like to thank all of you for tuning in to our Bible class this Wednesday. All right. And so, like I was saying last week, we began talking about prayer last week. Hello to my beautiful wife. She just tuned in from YouTube. Last week, we began talking about prayer, and we talked about how it's important how you enter into prayer. It's very important how you enter into prayer. It's very important. And so we listed, I believe, things we listed last week about how to enter into prayer. And we talked about, first of all, humility. Humility. We got to show humility. We got to be humble. And we talked about how in 2 Chronicles 7:14, how the first thing that God said was, if my people would humble themselves. Hello, Marty. How you doing tonight? And so humbleness is very important. Jesus gave a parable in Luke 18 about two men that went into the temple to pray. And the one that was justified was the one that humbled himself. So we got to humble ourselves and can't be showboating. Jesus talked about praying long prayers, repetitions, trying to show off, trying to stir people up. Jesus talked about how some of them think they'll be heard for their much speaking. So long prayers, it ain't about that. Humble yourself. It ain't about showing off. And then the second thing we mentioned was forgiveness. You can't go into prayer with any grudges against anybody. No grudges. All right. So get rid of them grudges. Whatever you have against somebody, let it go. And then the third thing we talked about selfish motives. Don't have no selfish motives. Over there in James 4:2, he said, you asked and you receive not because you ask amiss. So that's because you got a selfish motive. You try to please the flesh. And so your prayer ain't gonna be heard. And then the last thing we talked about was believe it. You got to believe it in order to receive it. Jesus said, if you believe and not, you shall receive it. Make your request known is what Philippians 4:6 says. Make your request known. So that's how we enter into prayer, with humility, forgiving, not selfish motives in our prayer to please the flesh, and believe it. And so tonight we're going into the power of prayer. We're looking at the power of prayer and how prayer avails much. It avails much. That's where we look at first. We look at over here in James 5:16, how much prayer avails. James 5:16 tells us how much prayer avails. He said, confess your faults one to another and pray for another, that you may be forgiveness, confessing your fault. And then he goes on to say, the effectual fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much. Well, how much does it avail? Look at that 17th verse and let's see how much. He said, Elias, which is Elijah, was a man subject to like passions as we are. In other words, he put on his hands one leg at a time like we do. He's just a man. But it goes on to say he prayed earnestly that it might not rain. He prayed earnestly that it might not rain. And it rained not on the earth by the space of 3 years and 6 months. You see your power over the elements through prayer. And then 18 says he prayed again, and the heaven gave rain, and the earth brought forth her fruit. Yes, you have that power to speak like Jesus to the wind, to speak to the rain, to speak to the elements, to hold them off, to let them come forth. You seen he was a man just like us. That's the power of prayer that lies within our hand if we enter into that prayer right. That's power. And then another thing over here, another thing is, second thing, power over the mountains. Power over the mountains. Let's look at Mark 11:23. Power over the mountains. Mark 11:23 said, verily, I say unto you, that whosoever shall say unto this mountain, be thou removed, and be thou cast into the sea, and shall not doubt in his heart, but shall believe that those things which he said shall come to pass, he shall have whatsoever he saith. You see what he's saying to you right there? You got power to move mountains. Power to move mountains. You know how big mountains are? And mountains represent those things in your life that you can't do nothing with, that you think is too much for you. Hello, Pastor Willie White. You think it's too much for you. You think you can't handle it. But through prayer, you can move that mountain. You can move whatever that mountain is in your life, that burden, you can move it through prayer. So you can talk to the elements. You can talk to the mountains and mountain, get out of my way. That's the power of prayer. That's how much prayer avails. It avails much. And then we move on to the third thing in the power of prayer, and that's protection. Let's go to Matthew 26 and 53. Matthew 26, 53. Over here, Jesus came to get him. The guards had came, and Peter had pulled his sword and to stop the guards. And this is what Jesus said at that time. He said, thinkest thou that I cannot now pray to my Father, and he shall presently give me more than 12 legions of angels? In other words, that power, that protection is there. I can call on God, and he'll give me 12 legions of angels. That's the power of prayer. If we just call on the Lord, you got that protection. If you just call on him. Look at John 14 and 12. Let's look at that right quick. John 14 and 12. Again, this is what Jesus is saying to us. Just like he called on and he said, I can for 12 legions of angels. This 12th verse said, verily, verily, I say unto you, he that believeth on me, the works that I do, he shall do also. And greater works than these shall he do, because I go unto my Father. So just like Jesus called on them 12 legions of angels, you can call on too. That's your protection. It's right here around you, waiting for you to call on them. That's the power of prayer. So call on him. Whatever you're going through, call on the Lord. You think you in the midst of something about to happen, you ain't got no help. Well, your help is there. It may not be visible to the natural eye, but it's there. So you can just call on him. 12 legions of angels are standing around us, waiting to protect us. All right, so that's the power of prayer in our lives. That's how much prayer avails. First, we say it, you can call and speak to the elements. Then we said you can speak to mountains. Now, number 3, we said you have protection. And here's the fourth thing. You have an intercessor. You have an intercessor. Let's look at Romans 8 and 26. You have that protection power. Romans 8 and 26 says, likewise, the Spirit also helps our infirmities. For we know not what we should pray for as we ought, but the Spirit itself maketh an intercession for us with groanings which cannot be uttered. That's that intercessor. He's making intercession for us. That's what Jesus is here for, to make intercession for us. So that's why we go back over there to that John 14 and 13. He said, whatsoever you ask in my name, that I will do, that the Father may be glorified in the Son. You shall ask anything. Look at that 14. You shall ask anything in my name, I will do it. Ask anything, he said, in my name, and I will do it. That's your intercessor. He's here for you, waiting for you just to call on him. So that's power of prayer that's here for us. That's the power of prayer that's here for us. So we covered power of prayer. It's here. 4 things we covered under the power of prayer. 1, power over the elements. Power over the elements. We looked at how a man, Elijah, man just like us, and called for it to stop raining. That's the power of prayer. We looked at number 2, how you can move mountains. Jesus said, you just say to that mountain, be thou removed, believe and not doubt, it shall be done. Then the third thing, protection. We got protection all around us. We can call for those 12 legions of angels. They here waiting for us to call on them to protect us. And the most important, number 4, we have an intercessor. We don't always know what to pray for, but he makes his intercession for us. And that's why he said, anything you ask in his name, he will do. He said anything. He said it twice. Anything. Twice he said it. That's our intercessor that's here for us. Anything. Call on him. Talk to him about it. He's here for us. And we got to remember that in our lives. That's the power of prayer. But then we got to go back. We got to go back to what we said earlier about the power of prayer. That first, before you enter into prayer, remember what we said last week, that you got to be humble. Before you enter into prayer, you got to be humble. You got to be humble. That old proud heart will mess you up. You got to be humble. Humility. If my people, which I call my name, shall humble themselves. Humble yourself under the hand of God, and he will exalt you in due time. And so it's so important into prayer to be humble. Don't be around here praying, trying to show off, boast, and about you do and all of that. But be humble. We said about entering into prayer. If you got any hard feelings, forgive folks. Anything going on between you and somebody, forgive them. Try to work it out. That's what we just read in James. Before he talked about Elijah, he said, confess your faults one to another. So let's iron this thing out. Let's clear this thing out. Humble yourself. Clear up them faults. And then number 3, believe in it. Believe it, you'll be able to move mountains. And 4th thing was, don't be selfish. Don't be praying for selfish. He said, you ask and you receive not because you ask. That's because your prayer is selfish. You want to consume upon your lust. No, don't be selfish. Don't be trying to please the flesh. And so you go into prayer with that right attitude, fervent prayer, earnestly, like Elijah. Then you can say to the rain, say to the wind, say to the elements. You can say it just like Jesus, peace be still, hold off that rain. Elijah held it off for 3.5 years. That's the power of prayer that God has given us. And then he said, you can say to a mountain. That's another power. There's some mountains in our lives. And sometimes you think you can't move it. No, prayer. And when you call on prayer, it ain't you moving it. That's God moving it. You got to look at it. When you pray, you calling for somebody that's greater than you. Somebody that got more power than you. You calling on him to come. Because he can avail much. What's impossible with men is possible with God. And so with prayer, that's how we get God to work on our behalf. And then you have that protection power. You can say just like Jesus, call for them 12 legions of angels. I don't see nobody. You be all by yourself, and here come a group of men finna try to get you. Where them angels was there with Samson, and he was able to destroy 1,000 men by himself. These angels are here with you too, and you can take them on. Those angels was there with David, and he took them on and killed a bear and a lion. The angel was there with him when he took on Goliath, and he brought Goliath down. And so the angels are here with you when you get cast into the fire like the three Hebrew boys. The angels is there with you when you get cast into the lion's den. The angels are here with you. That's your protection if you just call on him. And then fourth thing we said, most important, was he's our intercessor. We don't many times don't know what to pray for. Sometimes you be too weak to pray, but he'll make intercession for you. And so that's what he told us over there in John 14. Whatsoever you ask in my name, I'll do it. Twice he said it. I'll do it. I'll do it. Just ask. Just ask in my name. So make sure you stay humble as you go into prayer. And prayer will avail much in your life. It will conquer where no man can conquer. It will open doors where no man can open doors. You'll be able to step into things. Hello to my cousin Sharon. You'll be able to step into things that you thought you couldn't step into. Just like many times you see David talks about how he was just a little shepherd boy, and his father and his brothers didn't think much of him. They think he would be a king. They didn't even see him as king material. But here God made a king out of him, gave him a name and a lineage for Jesus to even come up under. See how great of a name God gave him. So God can do great things. If you just call on him, he'll open doors for you. Queen, what's her name? Queen Esther. Figure she was in slavery in a foreign land. So she figured this the end. But look what God did for her in a foreign land, in the midst of their slavery. He took her from being just as a slave girl and made her the queen over the land. You see what God can do? So don't give up because you're in the midst of this systematic racism, because we're in a country that tries to enslave us. Look what happened to Nelson Mandela. He went from 27 years of being in prison to becoming the president of South Africa. That's what God can do if you just call on him, if you just look to him. He took Joseph from being in prison, in slavery, to being in second command in the land of Egypt. That's what God can do if you just call on him. Prayer avails much. There's power in prayer. And so we need to tap into that power. Know what God has given us. He said he is able. Listen to this. This is over there where God said in Ephesians 5:20, where unto him that is able to do exceedingly, abundantly, above whatever we ask or think. That's what God is able to do, exceedingly abundantly, whatever we ask, we can imagine. But then he goes on in that verse and says, according to the power that lies within us. It's according to a power that is within us that God does this. He's able to do all of that. But it's according to a power that he said that is within us. And that's through prayer. That's how we can tap into that. Through prayer. Look at that verse. Ephesians 3:20. See it right there? He said, now to him that is able to do exceeding abundantly of all that we ask or think, according to the power that worketh in us. He's working in us. He was working in Elijah. That's how Elijah was able to stop prayed and it stopped raining because God was working in him. That's how David was able to defeat Goliath. God was working in him. That's how Samson was able to defeat 1,000 men. God was working in him. And so God is working in us too. If we just call on him, if we just believe that he is in us, then we can do that. Jesus said, I'll do whatever you ask me. I'll do it. I'll do it. So that's the power of prayer. The power of prayer. So we talked about last week how to enter into prayer. Covered it a little bit tonight. And then we talked about the power of prayer. And so next week, we're going to go into Matthew 6, and we're going to look at the Lord's Prayer. And there's a lot of power behind that prayer that Jesus taught his disciples, the Lord's Prayer. There's a lot of power behind that prayer, those words that he said to Jesus. And so next week, we're going to begin breaking down the Lord's Prayer. And you're going to see within the Lord's Prayer, part of what we just talked about, being unselfish, humbling yourself. And so we're going to go into that next week. So we'd like to thank you all for being a part of our Bible class tonight. I hope you got something out of this. And y'all be sure to have a good night. And as I always say, be sure to keep God first. Keep God first in your life. Prayer is powerful, but make sure you get into it the right way. Make sure you ain't asking amiss. Make sure you ain't trying to showboat. Make sure you ain't with a bunch of repetition and stuff. Make sure you ain't long prayers trying to impress people. Humble yourself. Get rid of them grudges and stuff that you got going on. Clear up yourself. When you clear up yourself, that power of God comes within you. That power of God comes within you, able to do great things. Jesus said, greater works than these shall you do. Because that power that's within. All right. Y'all have a blessed day, blessed night. Be sure to keep God first. Good night, everybody. All right. Thank you for tuning in.